What's up, Gooners? Welcome back to AFC Daily News. We've got 3 massive Arsenal stories to bring you today, with the latest news and updates coming out of the Emirates. So if you're an Arsenal fan, you're definitely going to want to hear this. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's get straight into it. Let's jump straight into the first story because The Sun are reporting that Arsenal have entered a fierce battle to sign Bournemouth's 19-year-old Brazilian winger, Ryan. And the list of clubs competing for his signature is the clearest possible indicator of the level of talent we are talking about here. Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Paris Saint-Germain, Liverpool, Arsenal. 5 of the biggest clubs on the planet are all tracking the same teenage Brazilian who only joined Bournemouth from Vasco da Gama last winter. That is not the profile of a scouting exercise or a background interest. That is elite clubs across 3 different countries all reaching the same conclusion about the same player simultaneously. And that kind of collective conviction from football's most sophisticated recruitment operations carries enormous weight. The background on Ryan is genuinely extraordinary given how recently he arrived in English football. After Bournemouth let Antoine Semenyo leave for Manchester City, they moved quickly to sign Ryan as his replacement, and the 19-year-old wasted absolutely no time making his impact felt. 7 goal contributions in just 15 Premier League appearances in his debut half-season. A place in Brazil's World Cup squad at 19. Bournemouth qualifying for European football. For a player who had been playing in Brazil just months before arriving in England, that transition has been remarkably seamless and has completely validated every piece of scouting intelligence that identified him as a special talent. The profile is also specifically compelling for Arsenal's needs right now. Ryan is a left-footed right winger by trade, operating on the opposite flank to his natural foot, which means he cuts inside onto his stronger side to create and shoot. That is exactly the profile Arteta has consistently shown he prefers in wide attacking positions. Saka operates that way on the right. Having a left-footed equivalent on the right side, capable of cutting in and threatening goal directly, gives Arteta tactical flexibility that creates nightmares for opposition defensive structures. Bournemouth are not in any rush to sell. The player's contract runs until 2031, and the Cherries have every incentive to hold firm. They are now a Europa League club, and Ryan is a central part of their identity going forward. Liverpool have reportedly discussed a £60 million bid. Bournemouth's actual valuation sits closer to £85 million, a gap that tells you how highly the South Coast club rate their Brazilian asset. Arsenal will need to act decisively and outbid serious competition from clubs with Champions League pedigree and deep pockets. But at 19, with this profile and at the peak of his development trajectory, £85 million for Ryan could end up being one of the transfers of the decade. So Gooners, with Real Madrid, Bayern, PSG and Liverpool all competing for Ryan alongside Arsenal, do you think Berta can win this race? And should Arsenal be willing to go to £85 million for a player with only 15 Premier League appearances to his name? Drop your verdict in the comments right now. Now let's talk about Ezri Konsa, because Sportsboom are reporting that Arsenal are preparing to test Aston Villa's resolve with a bid of around £65 million for the England international centre-back, and the specific context driving this pursuit makes it one of the most justifiable and urgent transfer decisions of Arsenal's entire summer. The Saliba injury has transformed what was previously a secondary consideration into an absolute priority. With the best centre-back on the planet confirmed to be sidelined for an extended period, Gabriel Magalhaes cannot be asked to carry the defensive structure alone through what promises to be a gruelling title defence across 4 competitions. Arsenal are not inclined to gamble on an inexperienced option or a short-term patch. They want certainty. They want stature. They want someone who can step into the starting 11 from the first week without requiring an adaptation period. Konsa provides all of that and more. The case for Konsa is built on multiple pillars that stack perfectly. Since joining Villa from Brentford for just £12 million in 2019, he has matured into one of the Premier League's most consistently reliable defenders, calm under pressure, dominant in the air, and comfortable in possession in a way that suits how Arteta wants his teams to build from the back. His performances at the World Cup, where England reached the semi-finals and claimed a bronze medal, elevated his reputation and stock to a level that now makes the £65 million valuation feel entirely reasonable in this market. The versatility dimension is also critically important for a squad preparing to compete across the Premier League, Champions League, FA Cup and League Cup simultaneously. Konsa can play as a centre-back and at right-back, and with Ben White's future still uncertain and Timber's injury history a genuine concern, having a defender who can cover both positions without a drop in quality is worth a significant premium. In elite squads, adaptability justifies bigger outlays. Arsenal know this better than anyone. Villa's resistance is the obvious complication. Konsa is under contract until 2028. He is not a peripheral squad member. He is embedded in Emery's defensive system and viewed internally as one of the dependable leaders in the group. Villa have already lost Rodgers to Chelsea this summer and will be extremely reluctant to weaken themselves further with Champions League football on the horizon. £65 million is a number that forces a serious internal conversation at Villa Park about value, about timing, about whether a player who cost £12 million 5 years ago, leaving for £65 million, represents the right outcome for the club right now. But the player's perspective may ultimately be decisive. The opportunity to join the reigning Premier League champions and compete for the biggest honours regularly, including the Champions League that Villa have so far struggled to win, is a conversation Konsa would need to have with himself honestly. Arteta wants a proven performer who can be trusted from day one. That description fits Konsa perfectly. Make the bid official, Berta. Force Villa's hand. So Gooners, is £65 million the right offer for Konsa, or do you think Arsenal need to go even higher to have any chance of prizing him away from Villa? And is he the right answer to the Saliba problem given his age and contract length? Drop every thought in the comments. Now let's round things off with the story that has been flying completely under the radar throughout this entire Vinicius Jr pursuit, because ESPN's Rodra has just revealed a detail about Arsenal's scouting infrastructure that could prove to be the most decisive hidden advantage in one of the most extraordinary transfer pursuits in football history. Paulo Xavier spent 6 years as Real Madrid's primary Latin American scout. In that time, he was instrumental in identifying and facilitating deals for the very finest Brazilian talent. Most notably, he was personally in Brazil building relationships with Vinicius Jr, his family and his representatives at TFM Agency, now Rock Nation Sports Brazil, even before the superstars moved to Europe in 2018. He was also key to the signings of Rodrigo and laid the foundational groundwork for Endrick's eventual arrival at the Bernabeu. In short, Paulo Xavier is the man most directly credited for bringing Vinicius Jr to European football in the first place. Arsenal convinced Xavier to leave Real Madrid in 2023 and lead their South American scouting operation. Edu Gaspar was the driving force behind that appointment, and since his arrival in North London, Xavier has remained the lead scout of Arsenal's Latin American pipeline, the architect behind the club's increasingly sophisticated approach to identifying talent from Brazil and across South America. Think about what that means in the context of the Vinicius pursuit. In a transfer this complex, involving a player of this magnitude, a club of Real Madrid's stature, negotiations conducted at the very highest level of football's financial stratosphere, relationships and trust are worth more than almost any other factor. Paulo Xavier has a pre-existing personal relationship with Vinicius, with his family, and with his representatives that goes back to before the player was even known outside Brazil. That is not a small detail. That is potentially the decisive edge in a negotiation where every other variable, fee, wages, Champions League ambition, is essentially equal between the handful of clubs who could afford to make this move happen. A move to Arsenal would also be received positively back in Brazil itself, something Xavier is uniquely positioned to help communicate to both the player and his family. Cultural comfort, a familiar trusted face in a new environment, the knowledge that the club pursuing you has someone on staff who was there at the very beginning of your journey to European football. These are factors that go beyond contracts and release clauses and speak directly to the emotional and personal dimensions of the most significant transfer decision of a career. Andrea Berta is currently focused entirely on getting the Guimarães deal over the line first, and rightly so. But when the moment comes to make a concrete push for Vinicius Jr, Arsenal have a trump card sitting quietly in their scouting department that most of the competition does not even know exists. Paulo Xavier, the man who discovered Vinicius in Brazil, now working for the club trying to sign him. Sometimes the most decisive factor in the biggest transfer of the summer is the one nobody was talking about. So Gooners, does knowing that Arsenal have Paulo Xavier, the man who discovered Vinicius in Brazil, as their lead South American scout change how confident you feel about the club's chances of landing the Real Madrid superstar? I want every single honest opinion in the comments right now. Alright Gooners, smash that subscribe button right now if you haven't already. Ezri Konsa, Vinicius, Guimarães, Alvarez, this window is delivering more drama than any Arsenal summer in living memory, and you absolutely cannot afford to miss a single update. Hit that button immediately, completely free. Until next time Gooners, come on you Gunners.